But how can you get any of the money back?
This is something that is now being worked through between the Justice Department and Citibank. I have a lot of problems with this entire scheme, parking $20 billion of tax dollars at this outside financial institution. As it relates to this $2 billion, they were one of 8 primary recipients of this entire pot of $20 billion in Inflation Reduction Act climate change grants. Now, this organization linked to Stacey Abrams received only $100 total in 2023. It's a new NGO. But then they received $2 billion in 2024.
A few moments later.
A federal judge on Friday tossed out a lawsuit brought by almost 24 nonprofit groups and localities whose environmental justice grants were terminated by the EPA. We're back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, my people. You know that it helps us out a ton. And, of course, it helps you because it helps us keep bringing you this content every day. Now, y'all, do you remember several months ago, going on 5 or 6 months ago, when Donald Trump became president again? And he said he was going to be taking down a lot of the waste, fraud, and abuse in the United States government. And do you remember one of the biggest, how can we say, examples of this was your girl, Stacey Abrams? Do you remember when Stacey Abrams, it was revealed that groups linked to her, that she's associated with, that she had somehow had involvement with? Do you remember when it was revealed that there was a $2 billion grant to those groups, and that previous to that, they had only shown $100 of donations or income or whatever, a newly formed group, specifically to get that $2 billion from the Biden administration? Do you remember the secret recording of a Biden official who said once they knew they had lost the election and that they were not going to be in power anymore, that they just started throwing this money around, and he called it like throwing gold bars, you know, bars of gold off of the Titanic or off of a sinking ship? Do you remember all that? Well, we covered that extensively at the time, but what you might not know is that the EPA director, see, all of this was under like environmental protection somehow. Biden and them slipped all this under protecting the environment. Let me give you, it was $20 billion total, right? And Stacey Abrams' group was lined up to get $2 billion of that. So once the Trump administration took over and they saw what was happening, the new EPA Environmental Protection Agency head, Lee Zeldin, he said, oh, no, you didn't. And he actually put it into that program. Some of the money was actually sitting in bank accounts, and Zeldin called Citi and he said, hey man, you better freeze those accounts. Well, what you might not have known is this has been an ongoing court case. These court cases have continued until now, and those organizations are trying to get their grubbies on the money. They're still trying to get their grubbies on the money. So today I'm bringing you an update as to what's going on with all of that money that went to the Stacey Abrams related groups and other groups. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link in real quick to Zeldin talking about this just to refresh in your memory. Then I'm going to come back and tell you what is the latest on this money that they're trying to get their grubbies on. But before we do, y'all, make sure you take care of your money. I'm not going to make this a long one, y'all. Go to Paralegold, PARALEGOLD.com, or call 844-651-8334, 844-651-8334. If you have $50,000 to $100,000 or more in your retirement, protected from inflation, protected from monetary debasement, you're about to retire. Make sure your money's still there and it's still worth something by investing at least some of it in gold. Talk to our partners at Augusta Precious Metals. Go click the link now, get the free information, and protect your precious retirement.
This is something that is now being worked through between the Justice Department and Citibank. I have a lot of problems with this entire scheme parking $20 billion of tax dollars at this outside financial institution. As it relates to this $2 billion, they were one of 8 primary recipients of this entire pot of $20 billion in Inflation Reduction Act climate change grants. Now, this organization linked to Stacey Abrams received only $100 total in 2023. It's a new NGO. But then they received $2 billion in 2024. That's something that we're working through right now with the Justice Department. They're engaged with Citibank. Here's one of the problems is that deliberately, the way the Biden EPA drew this up, if I do a notice of exclusive control to the bank, it actually gives the NGOs more power, not less. They can respond by telling the bank, now I want you to send my $2 billion to this other external bank. So the financial agent agreements, the account control agreements, which, by the way, were getting amended up to just days before Inauguration Day. It's something that we are working through.
All right, so here it says judge dismisses EPA grant termination lawsuit. A federal judge on Friday tossed out a lawsuit brought by almost 24 nonprofit groups and localities whose environmental justice grants were terminated by the EPA. The Supreme Court has made it clear that challenges to terminated grants must be heard by a special tribunal, the judge ruled. It is the first time a court has ruled in the EPA's favor regarding grant terminations. The ruling marks a blow for the hundreds of recipients of funding from EPA and other agencies who have seen huge swaths of grants canceled because the Trump administration disapproves of the spending, though they may be able to pursue damages in a different court. The Democrats' Inflation Reduction Act included a $2.8 billion chunk of money for environmental and climate justice block grants. The money was to be used by community groups to address environmental issues in historically disadvantaged communities. Now, check this part out here at the bottom. So basically, just to sum up, these groups sued in federal court, and the court said, look, that's not our jurisdiction. You have to sue in the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. That's not the court where they sued. They sued, I suppose, in regular federal district court. So the district court said, nope, we can't help you because this is not the place for that. But take a look at this. EPA could see additional court victories on this issue soon, including the high-profile termination of $20 billion under the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. EPA's terminations were blocked by a district court earlier this year, and the matter has been pending on appeal for months. Now look at the deal with these grants. The grantees under that program wrote to the DC Circuit Court of Appeals earlier this week to argue that their situation is different from the NIH grants because the money, quote, has long been in plaintiffs' accounts. So as Lee Zeldin said, this money was actually in their accounts. The funds were placed in accounts at Citibank as part of a financial agent agreement, the first time the EPA had structured grants in such a way. So in other words, Biden and them was like, look, let's just go ahead and set up y'all some Citibank accounts. Go ahead and put that money right in the account for you. So Lee Zeldin, he looks like he's winning, y'all. He looks like he's stopping this waste, fraud, and abuse. It looks like he was able to freeze Stacey Abrams linked groups' money. 20 billion. Y'all, what could you do with 20 billies? What could you do with 20 billies? So y'all, what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna shoot into some more background on this. For those of y'all who are like, what? They gave Stacey Abrams $2 billion? I'm gonna go ahead and flow right into our previous report on this so that you can get all the details and see this full clip of Zeldin talking about how he's gonna freeze the money and how it's over for these people. Let's take a look. Y'all, Stacey Abrams, as we talked about previously, she is now under investigation. The same body that is investigating Fani Willis, that is compelling her to come and speak before the Georgia State Senate, they're after Stacey Abrams as well. Now, why are they going after Stacey Abrams? Because Abrams has been getting public dollars into her coffers Okay, or at least let's say organizations associated with her, because I'm not going to say it was her individually. Organizations associated with Stacey Abrams have gotten public dollars into their coffers. As you're going to see, one of her linked organizations has received a huge fine. Another one has received $2 billion worth of United States federal funds. And now people want answers. So let's take a look at this quick news report on the resolution.
Trouble for a well-known Georgia politician, two-time candidate for governor Stacey Abrams, will now be investigated by the state Senate. Some lawmakers want to know how Abrams used billions in federal funds given to a group she was working with.
They also want to investigate campaign finance violations she's already been punished for. Political reporter Doug Reardon is at the state capitol tonight, where a Senate panel has done some controversial work at the State House.
This is the same panel of state senators that investigated Fulton County DA Fani Willis over her relationship with the prosecutor in the Donald Trump indictment. There was a long court battle with her to grant this panel subpoena power, and they may try to use it to bring in Stacey Abrams to testify. A familiar group of senators who investigated Willis for months will now turn their attention to Stacey Abrams. They want to know how she used $2 billion in Federal Infrastructure Act funding meant for a coalition of clean energy groups Abrams was working with.
We're going to get to the truth because it's taxpayer dollars that we're talking about, and that's why we have an interest.
Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones authorized the panel to continue its work well into this year's legislative session. Jones, a prospective candidate for governor in 2026, may very well see Abrams on the other side of the race, but says this has nothing to do with that.
I don't know what her future plans are, but that has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now.
Last month, Abrams and her voting group New Georgia Project were fined a record $300,000 for over a dozen campaign finance violations. That is also expected to be part of the investigation, despite Abrams' supporters saying it's done and over with.
There's no basis for it at all, especially when you have a state ethics commission that was clear in its ruling. Whether you agree with the ruling or disagree is irrelevant. The bottom line is you have a commission that's actually made a ruling, and it's their purview to make that particular ruling, and so therefore we should just move forward.
New Georgia Project did not respond to requests for comment Friday. As with the Willis investigation, this panel of state senators can't bring any criminal charges. They can only recommend them to the state and federal attorneys general. They can, however, propose changes to law based on what they hear in these hearings. In the state capitol, Doug Reardon, Atlanta News First.
So let's take a look at this resolution. Of course, you know I have the paperwork, right? Let's take a look at the resolution and see what it actually says. Here is the resolution filed by Senator Cowsert and others. It is authorizing the Senate Special Committee on Investigations to investigate additional matters, to authorize the use of compulsory process to secure the attendance of witnesses or the production of documents and materials related to such additional matters. It says, whereas on January 15, 2025, the State Ethics Commission agreed to a settlement of a long-running ethics investigation into the New Georgia Project and the associated New Georgia Action Fund, both of which were founded by Stacey Abrams, that resulted in the payment of a $300,000 fine, the largest for an ethics violation in Georgia history. It goes on to state other facts, and here it says, whereas in February 2025, Lee Zeldin, the administrator of the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, announced that another organization with ties to Stacey Abrams, Power Forward Communities, was awarded a $2 billion grant in 2024. And whereas Administrator Zeldin stated that such grant was governed by a grant agreement that provided for the funds to be dispersed within 21 days, with such disbursements made at the discretion of the organization more than 60 days before the organization was required to complete training on preparing a budget. And I will link to this in the description if you would like to read this entire resolution. But as you can see, the same body that's going after Fani is now wanting to speak to Stacey Abrams.
The EPA has discovered $2 billion stashed away by the Biden administration. The money was earmarked for a Stacey Abrams-linked climate group. Look who's here now, EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. Sir, I didn't see any media coverage of this, and I can't explain that. But how can you get any of the money back?
This is something that is now being worked through between the Justice Department and Citibank. I have a lot of problems with this entire scheme, parking $20 billion of tax dollars at this outside financial institution. As it relates to this $2 billion, they were one of 8 primary recipients of this entire pot of $20 billion in Inflation Reduction Act climate change grants. Now, this organization linked to Stacey Abrams received only $100 total in 2023. It's a new NGO. But then they received $2 billion in 2024. Page 1 of the grant agreement with this NGO says that they have 21 days to distribute the entire $2 billion. And on page 7 of the grant agreement, it says that the NGO has 90 days to complete a training called How to Develop a Budget. If they don't know how to develop a budget and they need that simple training, they should be taking that training before spending $1, and they certainly shouldn't be given $2 billion and only 3 weeks to get it out.
But can you get the money back? I mean, if it was committed by the administration before Biden left office, it was committed to this group, can you get it back?
That's something that we're working through right now with the Justice Department. They're engaged with Citibank. Here's one of the problems is that deliberately, the way the Biden EPA drew this up, if I do a notice of exclusive control to the bank, it actually gives the NGOs more power, not less. They can respond by telling the bank, now I want you to send my $2 billion to this other external bank. So the financial agent agreements, the account control agreements, which, by the way, we're getting amended up to just days before Inauguration Day. It's something that we are working through because the Biden EPA put this in writing to make sure that not only are they tossing these gold bars off the Titanic, their words, not mine, but they're trying to make it very difficult to recover, but we're not going to rest.
Now, this is exasperating.
So as you can see, the Stacey Abrams saga is far from over. You have the Georgia State Senate that's looking into her. You also have the EPA who are trying to get their $2 billion back from her. You know, they're going to the bank. They're like, hey, city, y'all got these $2 billion. We gonna need that back. So now I want to hear what you have to say. I mean, I've already heard what many of you have had to say on our other videos covering this topic. But as you can see, the pressure, the temperature is being ratcheted up. The money's being clawed back. She's being called in front of the Senate to account for whatever she may have done wrong. So y'all, now I'm going to ask you the question, what do you think's going to happen? What do y'all think is going to happen here? Do you think that the Stacey Abrams link groups are going to win and they're going to be able to get this money? Or do you think the courts are going to side with the EPA and say, nah, y'all only had $100 to your name before Biden threw you $2 billion. We agree with Zeldin. That's kind of crazy. Let me know down in the comments, y'all. But before you do, please stop, hit the share button, share this video out over email, text message, WhatsApp, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, all of your favorite social mediums. And of course, if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. To my people with a retirement, go to our link at Paralegold, PARALEGOLD.com. You can find that link down in the description, people. You don't have to remember it. Just go down and click the very first link in the description. See how Gold can help you protect your retirement from the upsies, downsies, the roundsies, and the roundsies. And speak to my people at Augusta Precious Metals at 844-651-8334. Thank y'all for watching. Love y'all, and we'll see you back in the next one.